Thank you very much. And I look forward to talking to you about technology today on this nice snowy day. To kick things off, I'm just going to give everybody an idea of what I'd like to cover today. First, I want to take uh, kind of a look back on the history of tech and HR and recruiting to set the stage of where we are today and where I think we'll be going in the next couple of years. Then I'm going to specifically talk about how tech is affecting attracting qualified candidates. So, how we find them, because I think it's changed significantly. Then I'm going to get into interviewing. That technology changes have pretty significantly changed how we're interviewing today, and I think how we will do that in the very near future and then longer term future. Subsequent to that, we'll talk about onboarding. And when I talk about onboarding, I'm talking not only about the forms and all of those things that are required for us to capture for employees to make sure they're okay to work and set up their taxes and all that good stuff, but also onboarding them into your culture and into your company. And then I want to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence. It seems to be all that's in the news these days, especially when it comes to recruiting, retention, and as we get into HR. So I want to kind of define where we are in HR in artificial intelligence, what that means today, and what I think it means in the future, and how folks in our world, in the HR world, and the recruiting world can take advantage of that to make sure that we're not behind the curve, because I think companies that are behind the curve on AI are going to struggle a little bit in 2024 and 2025. So to kick things off, what I want to do is, if my slides will change here. They were working, obviously. Here we go. How'd we get here? So if I think back to my 25 plus years in the recruiting and retention and HR business, specifically recruiting, when I got involved, we used what people today call snail mail. If you think about, and I see about 130 people on the call today, if we think about those of us that were in the business back in the 80s and 90s, the way we advertised for a position or tried to cultivate candidates was we'd put an ad in the classified section of the newspaper, which many of those not many of those exist today. And then we waited for candidates to mail us a resume and a cover letter. And that process typically followed the curve of ads were placed on Fridays, ads went in the Sunday newspaper. That's when everybody looked for a job. People put their resumes in the mail Monday and Tuesday, so maybe we got them toward the end of what I call week one. We looked at them week one, week two, contacted candidates, typically through phone, set them up for an interview, maybe for week two, but often in week three. So the cultivation of candidates at the beginning of my career was a 2 to 3 week process before you even started to engage them or got to meet them. Then this thing called the fax machine came along, and first it made things quicker for companies like ours and companies like yours to move information back and forth between each other. So we could now, instead of making a phone call to the newspaper to place the ad, we could fax it. So we could move things a little bit quicker. It didn't change a whole heck of a lot what the time frame in that 2 to 3 week engagement of the candidate was. What really started to change that was the introduction of the internet. Um, and if you go back into the 90s, the internet was going to put recruiting firms and recruiters, corporate recruiters, out of business because they wouldn't need us anymore, and or some of you folks anymore who are in the recruiting world in your companies. But that didn't happen. But what it did do was allow for companies, recruiting firms to post ads more and have them seen more quickly. Now, not everybody had access to the internet. Access to the internet was slow compared to what we have today, and it was rudimentary. It was still basically just text that showed up so that people could see that there was an open position somewhere. And then many folks at that time still responded via a paper resume that was sent to us via mail. The first, I want to say, big game changer was email, and email has been around a long time before it was well used, but with the implementation of AOL and online internet service providers, email access became accessible to a larger number of people. So now folks could see an ad on the internet and respond to it very quickly via email. So that time frame of 2 to 3 weeks was coming down into days, where a company or a recruiting firm like mine could put an ad out somewhere on the internet. Someone could see that and then see that same day, email us a resume, email us a response, and we could then start the process of engaging that candidate and working with them. So now we've moved from 80s, 90s weeks to 90s, late 90s, early 2000s days to start interacting with clients. And as I was researching this, I remembered, I'd just like to throw fun facts out. If some of you remember, some of you might be old enough to remember on this call how the United States Postal Service was going to try and charge for email. I thought that was comical. Good thing that didn't work out. Well, maybe not for the post office. So email changes a lot. It moves the process more quickly. Then what happened is job boards were created. And one of the first big ones that I remember was Monster, big ads on the Super Bowl. So they got recruiting to a whole nother game where they could aggregate jobs. And what they started to do was solicit folks like us to place ads on their job board. And as I look back at their business model and what they've accomplished, I wonder if their end game was what they anticipated it was going to be 20 years later. Because what they've done now, if you look at job boards, they're less interested in folks like all of us buying ads than us buying access to their database of candidates. They've accumulated a tremendously large database of candidates that's much more valuable to folks looking for candidates than placing an ad and waiting for someone to reply. But they changed the game. They were going to put many of you corporate recruiters out of business. That didn't happen. But it was, excuse me, I've got a little cold, so every once in a while I'm going to have to do this. It was another one of those things that were going to put us all out of business that didn't. I think the next big thing that came in the late 2000s, 2008, 9, 10, was really the acceptance of social media. It became a place for people to congregate, and folks started to understand that they could post ads on these social media sites and direct them to very specific demographic folks that they were targeting. So you could look for people in specific demographies, looking for specific types of skill sets, and that narrowed the focus down a little bit. It also started to compress the speed at which we were doing recruiting and retention. Then the biggest game changer in my career was the cell phone, was the iPhone, particularly smartphone. It got people off the desktop into their hands, and um, I think as smartphone computing matured, it really got us to that point where we're at today, which is same day recruiting. Um, Ads or job postings are made, and people see them through various media, whether it's social media, job boards, company websites, whatever it might be. They see them that same day, and they start the engagement of with candidates and clients starts immediately that same day. It will get quicker as you'll start to see. But the biggest game changer this year, 2023, was the introduction of ChatGPT and the delivery of rudimentary artificial intelligence kind of to the masses. I think it's going to level the playing field to a large degree, and it really and I'll close my talk today with some of my thoughts on AI, but it's going to get things to less than a day, and that's kind of the theme of what I'd like many of you to take from this presentation today. We've come from 2 to 3 weeks to hours, I think, in engaging candidates and recruiting, and that's what I'd like you to think about as we go through my chat today. So where are we? Speed is everything. Speed trumps everything. The first person to the first company, the first recruiter, the first person to the most qualified candidate is going to have an edge, and generally be the one that wins that candidate. If you think about how all of us are working today, and again, think back 3 weeks, less than a day. It's not just the younger generations that want things quickly. It's old guys like me that want things quickly. 2-day prime shipping on Amazon isn't quick enough often. When I used to have to create a list, pick a day to go to the store, go buy something. And it's no different in the world of recruiting. It's no different in the world of HR and generating good qualified leads. The attention span of the candidate has changed significantly. When I started in recruiting, and we started to get computer HR systems, we thought it was great to have candidates apply by entering all their data that we would need in the database themselves. That's off the table today. The attention span of the candidate is seconds. It's less than a minute. And I want you to think of your shopping habits. Your shopping habits are no different than a candidate's job shopping habits. If they can't find what they're looking for in your job ad or your website, they're going to leave and they're going to go somewhere else to look. You've really got to do things to hold their attention, and you need to hold their attention long enough to get the information that you need. And I think one of the things that has changed significantly over the last year or two is the introduction of video. Text is done. If you remember that picture I threw up of Yahoo, that was all text. Those days are gone. You don't see that anymore. All really text is for on websites is SEO these days, search engine optimization, to make sure you get seen. Pictures, unless you are showing pictures that are real and are of your company and your team, I really don't recommend them in your career pages and your job search. People want to see reality, and folks understand what a stock picture is these days. So for me, it's all about video. It's all about movement. Where do all of us spend our time on social media? It's in video, it's on TikTok, it's on YouTube. Those are the places people go. So when they come to your career page, when they come to your website, what they're going to want to see is movement. They're going to want to see your company, your people, what you do, and that's going to hold their attention, I think, longer to get them to stay and take the next step, which is getting further engaged in your website or the specific positions that you have open. Um, One thing I'd really like to, I'll go into this a couple times in my presentation today. Reviews are huge. And what I like, if there's one thing all of you take from today is go look at your web pages, go look at your websites and your career pages and see what kind of reviews you have. And, you know, if you don't have 50, 60 plus reviews, and even better, specific to what it's like to work at your business, you're behind the curve, and it's going to be harder for you to attract candidates. And I'll talk about that a little more as we go through this. Mobile's everything. I mentioned that earlier. We're really seeing a move away from people having a desktop or a laptop computer today. What they have is a phone or a tablet. So if your recruiting process, your application process, your onboarding process is not mobile friendly, and it should have been a year or two ago, you really need to invest some time and attention at that. Because if people can't do what you need them to do on their phone, you're going to lose that good candidate. It's really important to make sure that you invest the time and the money into getting your website mobile friendly. I can't speak enough about that. And that also speaks to how you communicate with people. If you go back to the 90s and 2000s, most people's access to a computer was through their workplace. And that's why you had, the Amazon's, the Monday, Cyber Monday, where everybody shopped on Monday because they had access to their computer. Now they have access to everything on their mobile phone, and that access is 24/7. The days of searching for jobs and applying for jobs during a set business day are over also. You need to be able to communicate and engage with your candidates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that brings into focus chatbots and automation. These things have been around for years. All of it is technically artificial intelligence. It's algorithms looking at something that's happened and taking a next step for that. It really allows you to engage candidates 24/7. Your website allows for that, but what you also need to do is be able to engage a candidate. If they ask a question at 2 a.m, they're going to want an answer at 2 a.m. They're not necessarily going to want to wait until the next day or Monday, if it's a weekend, to have some interaction with you. So if you don't have that, you're kind of behind the curve again. Don't feel like you have to hide that you're using a chatbot. Folks these days understand what a chatbot is, and some of the best I've seen come right out and tell you they're a bot by either looking like a robot or saying, "I'm American Airlines chatbot, and I'm here to help you today." Try to automate all of that initial process that you can, so that you can focus your corporate recruiters to speaking with the most highly qualified candidates. And then finally, artificial intelligence is really creeping into this process. It is, and it's really the processing speeds that have allowed that, and what's powering AI. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we get into that. So let's start with the application process and how tech has affected that. Where are all the people? I assume most of this group is from Lancaster County. We're looking at 2.8% unemployment in the county. Record lows, 15 years. It hasn't been lower than that. The state of Pennsylvania is 3.4. Those numbers, for those of us in the recruiting industry, really mean full employment. Everybody that the significant majority of people that want to work are working. Certainly, there's going to be some people on the outskirts of that, but that 3% typically to an economist means full employment. Companies, I believe, overhired in 2022. All of us saw wages go through the roof. Everybody seemed to be hiring. We're in a recessionary type period. Definition wise, maybe it's not called a recession. It might not be called yet, but certainly things have slowed down in our world, and I think they have slowed down in the hiring world. What we're seeing different in this period is I think they overhired in 2023, 2021, 2022. They aren't laying them off in great numbers, as we can see by these unemployment rates. So it's and because they saw how hard it was to hire them. So companies, I think, are a little afraid to start hiring or start laying off because of how difficult it may be to rehire people. So this low unemployment, I think, is the new normal. We've got a structural deficit in candidates and employees. We're not going to be able to birth our way out of it. It just takes too long. And until, in my opinion, the government gets serious about immigration reform, we're not going to see things change a whole lot in this environment. So get used to low unemployment, really hard to find candidates. There's still wage pressure. Candidates are in the driver's seat. There's still wage pressure. We're not seeing as much wage pressure as we did last year. So wages are still rising, but not at that crazy number we saw in 2022. A lot more candidates sitting tight. They read the newspapers too. They have a job. They're not as apt to jump anytime soon. And what we're seeing in our world is candidates often, and especially really good ones, have multiple job offers when they get one. So, 80. I want to talk a little bit about job boards. I'm sure all of us or anyone on the call that's in the recruiting world knows that or uses job boards. We've seen a maturation of job boards, and what job boards now are doing is, I mentioned this before, they're focusing on the candidate databases that they have. 80% of the candidates that are out there today are on more than one job board. And so you think Indeed, you think Career Builder, you think Monster, kind of the big three. 80% of the candidates are on more than one of those. So my advice to folks on the call today is pick your poison, pick your favorite job board and focus on that one. Using multiple job boards is probably not going to pay the dividends that you might want to get, that you may think you get by going to different job boards. But those job boards now, it's all about us having access to that database and finding the candidates. And they're monetizing that. That's what they're charging the big bucks for, is access to that candidate pool that you can go in and search, that you can pull candidates to you from, instead of waiting for candidates to come to you. I want you to think about the application process as a sales process. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in the next few minutes. The idea of the application process to me is to generate interest and generate a conversation and generate engagement with candidates that you want to work at your company. And sometimes that may take years. And I see that, and the best example I give is public accounting firms. They start engaging with students in their freshman year and on offering internships to folks in accounting, sometimes multiple years, so that's their beginning of the engagement with the candidate. So in the senior year or close to graduation of that candidate, that accounting graduate, they've spent years cultivating that student, so they come to work at that firm. When you're advertising and looking for someone to work next week, you certainly can't wait years. But I want you to think about that model, and we're just going to shrink it and make it quicker. The application process to me is like fishing. The idea of posting an ad or getting the idea that you have an open position out somewhere is to attract candidates to a place on your webpage that's focused on careers. And I don't care how big you are. You don't have to be a 10,000 person company to build a really cool and really focused, excuse me, career page. What you can do is show your team, show a workday, show how people work, show them in process, have them talking, have them saying what it's like to work at your company, so that you begin to engage that candidate and have them interested in coming to work for you. Make it easy for you, or for that candidate, I'm sorry, to hear from other people what it's like to work for you. Make it easy to engage and have reviews, or for candidates to get to reviews that you can see. Um, uh, Job ads today should not be a list of tasks. It should be attracting that person to want to work at your company. You can They'll figure out what the tasks are later. What you need to do in this market and the market of the future is really engage them into the future. I just threw up a picture here of we we have made a concerted and not inexpensive investment in getting reviews from people. It's a daily process. Much of it is automated. And we post new reviews on our website almost every day from candidates that are working with us, so that people don't necessarily have to take our word for it that we're a great company to work for, but they can hear what other people say. And I say this is, it's a not inexpensive effort in money, but also in time. A year and a half ago, we had 7 or 8 Google reviews. Now, if you look us up, we have 84. It's nowhere near enough, but it's over that 50, 60 threshold that innately people think is, oh, these are this is a good number of reviews. And think about how you shop. And I want you to think about how many times you've bought something because of a positive review, but more importantly, how many times you've not bought something because of a negative review. And managing the reviews that you take is all about getting the more positive reviews to the top, and responding to those negative ones in a way that will let a potential candidate say, kind of put that not so great review to the side. There are companies that are attracting venture capital money and are focused on getting reviews for your career sites. So, I took a look at some of the companies on this call, and I only, in one industry, I won't say what it was, but out of 10 companies in that industry, only 2 had more than 10 reviews on their Google site. So if someone's looking for a job, they go to that site. If you've only got a few reviews, they're probably mostly negative, because people don't go out of their way to put a positive review on your website or your job page. So to kind of further talk about that application process, there are certain expectations that candidates have. And the first is that you have positive reviews. It's a time-consuming process. If you don't have time, if you don't have 50, 60, 70 reviews today, you're not going to get them in a month. It's going to be a 12 to 18-month process to get there and then get even further. But it's something that I would really ask you to encourage you to focus on, and focus on quickly. Candidates expect minimum of weekly communication with a recruiter. And this is where we get into that nurturing process. What do you talk about? I'm not talking about a phone call. I'm talking about maybe a text message or an email that's sent, and those can be automated. And it's another area. Spent a lot of time and money in automating processes so that we're keeping an open line of communication with our candidates. 62% of candidates opt out if they haven't heard from you after 3 weeks, and 22% will do that if they haven't heard from you in less than a week. So if you're still working in that mindset of, oh, I'll place an ad and I'll wait 2 weeks to call to see what the candidates look like and then call them, by the time you start calling those candidates, they're disengaged. They're not interested in your job anymore, and they probably have another one. Predictive marketing, use automation, artificial intelligence will make this better to communicate with folks who you may have had contact with in the past that might have the skills for jobs that you have coming up in the future, and start to engage them on a more regular basis. It's what the big online retailers do. They're constantly emailing us. They're constantly engaging us with things that their algorithms tell us that we want to buy. This is important, and it's another thing that I'd like you to take away. The time it takes for a candidate to do an application needs to be less than 3 minutes on your website. And really all you need is their name and some way to communicate with them to start that engagement process. You may not even need the resume at first. I'll leave that up to you. But what you want to do is capture who they are and how to communicate with them quickly, so you can start asking them questions, nurturing through the process. Are they going to be a candidate that fits with your company, and are they someone that you're going to want to interview? That if you have a long application process on your website, you're going to lose that person after 3 minutes. They're going to go somewhere else. The time from application to interview has to be quick, and I think that has to be days. You can't hold candidates for a week and expect them to still be around or still be interested in your company. Excuse me, and it has to be mobile friendly. They have to be able to communicate with you, and in many cases, interview with you on a cell phone, on a smartphone, or on a tablet. And I'm keeping that little sentence down there. It's a sales process, and really think of it that way. It's a sales process. It's not an application process. As we move into the interview, the first interview really is about screening that candidate. Are they someone that has the basic skill sets to do the job that you need? Do they have the education? Do they have the experience? Are there pay expectations within your pay scale? That can be done. It should be done if you're doing it in person in a video, but it can also be done by chatbots, and artificial intelligence is really going to accelerate how this is implemented by all of us. So that the first thing you do is you screen them. Are they someone worth talking to? And if they aren't, move them out. If they are, that's when you're going to want to start nurturing them. Let them know, we had this first interview. We think you're interested in you're a candidate that we think is interesting, and we're going to get you into the next phase of the process. Not sure when that is, but look for an email or look for a phone call from us to schedule a second interview. Keep in touch with them. Couple of emails, couple of text messages, point them to your benefits page on your website, point them to maybe a video on your website that explains what your company does. Keep them interested in who you are, so that when you get to that second interview that's in person, that's when you're really going to learn about, are they going to be a good cultural fit for your company? That first screen, that first interview, that's when you find out if they have the skills for the job. So in that second discussion with them and that conversation with them, and I'm trying to get my industry and my company specifically to talk, that interview is not an interview anymore, it's a discussion, but are they going to fit in with your culture? And then, you're going to nurture them after that second interview. You've gone from your maybe 10 candidates that you screen to the 5 candidates that you interview. Now you're going to nurture them again, maybe introduce them to the hiring manager, introduce them to the hiring manager's LinkedIn page, make it a little bit more personal, so that you can get to that final decision. And, we're seeing the number of interviews collapse. Used to be 3, 4, 5 interviews. Sometimes now it's 2, maybe 3. Do you need that third interview? Because in the market that we're in, with the scarcity of good qualified people, sometimes waiting another week for that third round of interviews, your best one or two candidates might be gone by then. So really think about, is that third interview really necessary before you start making an offer? Even after the offer, start the next nurturing process. So someone's offered the job, before they start is an onboarding process. I'd love to get my company to the point where every offer is a video. We're not there yet. It's a phone call often, but again, video. Call them up on Teams, call them up on Zoom like we're doing today. Allow them to see your smiling face that you want them to come work for, and you see their face that they want to come work for you. Again, more nurturing in that start date, and use technology for this. Automate this process. There are relatively inexpensive tools you can use to do that, so that you're keeping in touch with that candidate before they start. The documents, the pre-hire documents, should all be online, and this is where you want to ask for the review. Nobody's happier than when they get a job offer. Now ask for a review. Give us a review. Tell us how you felt about our onboarding process. And when they do that, if they give you a good one, try to get them to push that out to Google. Be ready for them their first day. It's a no-brainer. Today, they want their computer, they want their desk, they want everything set up for them. So how do we keep people? And I'm going to move a little more quickly because I want to get to AI. I'm conscious of time. Automation, tech, AI is allowing for the scheduling process to be automated. I think one of the jobs that you'll see done away with in the next couple of years through AI is dispatchers. There'll still be dispatchers, but there probably won't be as many of them because computers will be able to do that. Same thing with predictive scheduling. Performance reviews. We all hate them. We hate them. Our employees hate them because they're not always done well. And technology is allowing for real-time KPI feedback, gamification of KPIs, real-time dashboards that allow managers to see what they're doing. And if you can get more often, more regular and more accurate feedback with your employees, the performance review is happening all the time. And when it's time for the formal one, you can use automated processes to cue the manager that there's performance evaluations coming up in a month. Here's the employees that need them. Here are their KPIs. Here's how they did against those KPIs, and here's what their merit increase might be because of that. It allows, I think, technology. I don't think, I believe, and we're starting to see it's true. It's going to allow for better decision making by managers, not just how they think somebody's doing, but tech and automation and automated processes are going to allow for much better data when we have those discussions. And time tracking, I think, is going to go geofencing as we move into the next future. So another thing, lots of folks, there's this whole debate about virtual working. I'm not going to take a side, but I do believe that the traditional workday hours are going to blur. That 8 to 5 is going away. I think, if you think of a workday, especially someone in the office like most of us on this call are, 8 to 5, I think, becomes maybe 7 to 9. Then someone takes a break to deal with kids or parents, whatever it might be. They might start working again. Maybe they work from 11 to 3, take another break, and then finish their day 7 to 9. As long as you get the work done, the hours that they're working kind of blur a little bit. Geographic limitations are going to start to blur also. If you don't need a 8 to 5 workday and you don't work in an office, you don't necessarily have to look for someone in Lancaster, for example. They could be somewhere else. And I really think problem solvers are going to be the folks that win. And as far as folks that win, hours are changing. Geographic limitations are changing. The best people may not be local. They might not be really people at all. And that's where I like to get into, that's where I wanted to chat and close my conversation the next maybe 10 minutes on artificial intelligence. What is it? ChatGPT today is large language model learning. It's taking all of the data that's out on the internet and looking at those words and predicting the words that follow them and the words that precede them and returning back to us an answer. It takes huge amounts of processing speeds, and that's why it's really the processing speeds that have been the limitation of AI in the past. It's really big data. What AI isn't is, Terminator yet. That could come, but don't be scared of AI and that it's going to take over next year. It's not. What it's going to do is help everybody or help some people's job become easier. It also may do away with some jobs. And this is a list from Business Insider of the jobs that artificial intelligence has the near-term potential to replace. Coders, you can go into ChatGPT and you can say, write me code on this. My son's coder, he uses it every day. It helps him fix his code lines. So you'll still need folks that code, you'll need fewer of them because artificial intelligence tools will do the grunt work of that. Writers, that's where we're seeing the most impact of artificial intelligence, specifically ChatGPT today. Just think about the news from Sports Illustrated that it had ChatGPT and artificial intelligence writing news stories. It can't, because that's what ChatGPT is. It's a large language model. It's just about using words and predicting and using algorithms to predict the next word that's the word that's going to follow the previous word. Graphic designers can do that too. Go into ChatGPT, tell it, draw me a picture of this, and it will. Then we get into the legal world, paralegals, legal assistants. That's all about words often, writing responses to cases. A lot of writing in the legal world. Artificial intelligence is going to do great for that. Still be paralegals, probably not going to be as many of them, and they're going to be really specialized to making sure that what the artificial intelligence is spitting out is accurate. Sorry, folks, but accountants, accountants aren't going away, but a lot of the rudimentary processes can be done by artificial intelligence, things like ChatGPT. Market research, great way to do research even today is to go into ChatGPT and say, I'm looking at this, spit this out, and it's really good at that. Teachers is delivering material. So again, there'll still be teachers. I think, personally, I think AI is going to really change how teachers teach. It's going to allow them to be more engaged with their students. Finance advisors and analysts and traders on the exchanges, that's been around. You put a trade into E-Trade and it just happens. You don't need a trader on the floor to do that. Customer service also. Go on a website. Almost every website you see has a chatbot, and what that chatbot is trying to do is boil down your issue to solve the most simple ones quickly, or to get an idea of what you're looking for, so that when you go to that customer service person, the time that you spend with them is less and focused. How I think it's going to roll out. So I think for those of you on the call, you're going to start seeing artificial intelligence built into your AI systems in 2024 and HRIS systems in 2024 and 2025. It's being built and is built into some of the software platforms in my industry, the recruitment industry. We typically get this stuff first. Because we're big users of that. And we're the kind of the test before it gets pushed out to you. So it'll start coming. You all, believe it or not, have databases of candidates that have applied for you. What AI could start doing for you is allowing you to search that database to find candidates who may have applied in the past that you might want to reach out to and nurture in the future. Kind of a threat for my business. So I'm hoping you all don't jump into that and do that. It will be built into Microsoft Office. They're saying first quarter of next year. It's called Copilot. It will do things like, if you have a Word document, you literally tell Microsoft Office to make it a PowerPoint, and it will. Computer, make this Word document, a PowerPoint. I didn't use it for this. Think about Excel also. You have a data set, you tell computer, make this a pivot table, make this a pie chart. It's going to do those things for you. So you're not going to have to do that. You'll just tell the computer to do it. It's kind of like Star Trek used to be, for those of you old enough to know that. Screening, chatbots will take care of initial screening. Artificial intelligence will take care of that regular communication. And I really think you'll start to see that the initial interview is going to be more and more done virtually. Things to watch out for in artificial intelligence, resumes. Candidates can go in and say, clean up my resume, make it better. So I think in the next several months, and we're seeing it already, you'll see more and more resumes done by ChatGPT than by the specific candidate. Interview questions. You can go in, a candidate can go into ChatGPT and anticipate what they might be asked in an interview for their specific type of position, and it will help coach them through how to answer. Be really careful about virtual interviews. ChatGPT is quick. If you ask someone a question, they could type that question into ChatGPT and it could spit out the answer that they're going to give you. So understand that tool is out there for candidates. Same thing with work samples. If you want someone to write something, if you're in the media world and you want them to write a PR post, ChatGPT can do that. So is that really what the candidate is producing? Research is in there. So finally, to wrap things up, I don't know what happened there, but I went to the end. But just to wrap things up, try to find my paper last page. Tech is impacting everything, including HR. It's changed how we recruit. It's changed how you're retaining people. Embrace it where you can, because if you don't embrace tech, it's my opinion that you'll be left behind in the near future. And that's where I'd like to just finish my presentation. And I think we have a little bit of time left for questions. So I don't know, Aaron or one of the folks from Trout, if anyone's asked any questions that I'd be happy to answer at this moment.
Thank you, Scott. You did a great job. Thanks for the great tips today. I know that you gave our attendees lots of things to think through, and the history lesson of kind of where we came and where we're going too. Great work. One of the questions that I'd like to ask is, what is the number one question that you're getting from candidates today and the things that they're looking for from an employer?
Pay still trumps everything. That's always what people are most interested about. But after that, they really want to know about the culture of the company that they're looking at. I can't tell you how many times we present a candidate to a client. The client says they want to interview them. That's the point in my business where we let the candidate know the company. They go review that. They look at reviews for that company and call us up and say, you know what, I don't want to take that interview, because they're not seeing that place is a good has a good culture and is a good place to work. So that's probably behind. Is the wage expectation appropriate? It's that culture. And the more you can show that on a website, the better odds you have of getting that candidate into your process.
Do you have any tips, Scott, for, so you've shown some of those culture elements on your website. Now you have them, face-to-face potentially. How do you walk them? Do you have any suggestions on how to further explore the culture exercise?
Yeah, it's part of what that nurturing process was in the presentation I gave.
Mm-hmm.
Have videos of your team, all the different jobs that are done. Hire a videographer, come in and interview those folks, and after the first or second interview, start emailing those videos out. Not all at once. one day, maybe two the next day, whatever it might be, so they can engage with a person through a video who's a real person working at that company that says, this is a great place to work.
Excellent suggestion. That concludes our questions for this
Great.
session. We're gonna give folks a few minutes in between sessions, and we'll start the next one at the top of the hour.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Have a great day.